It's time for the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
Welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Made a comment in the last show about AI, about the FTC proposing some new ruling. Got some interesting responses from my right-wing friends who are, and this is weird because this shouldn't be a red hat, blue hat issue, but evidently since I have come out and said that Lena Khan has done, I think, moved in the right direction, that we should be getting ahead of this instead of falling further behind, some of the MAGA crowd were like, what, are you afraid of AI? And the answer is yes. What are you, Luddite? Not so much, but leery, worried about where we're heading, and worried for my red hat friends as well, because, well, AI is here. It's not coming. It's already here. And I got into a couple of interesting back and forths, and was able to share some of my concerns, some of my fears about what this meant. And I thought, you know what, maybe this is a good place to start today's program, in that, look, I'm not a Luddite. I don't think we destroy the machines yet. I don't think that that's something that should be off the table. But the reality is there's a lot in the AI space to be concerned about, especially if you're a working person, especially if you're someone like me who goes to work every day, punches a clock, and earns a living, like most of us. So I had someone ask me, what were my fears? And, obviously the most obvious ones are the job displacement to start, de-skilling the jobs that we do, the loss of ability to control our workspace, the loss of bargaining power. And you go, well, what do you mean by all that? Well, job displacement, AI. Look, these companies wouldn't be moving towards automation and artificial intelligence if there wasn't a massive payoff by getting rid of you, by getting rid of actual human people who do the jobs that they need to get done. Because understand, workers are negatives on the balance sheet. In a capitalist society, you're a cost. You're a cost in the factor of production that gets in the way of their profit. So if they can get rid of you, robots, automation, machine, mechanized, they're going to do that. And this idea, well, we can't raise the minimum wage because they're going to automate. If you cost $1 an hour and the machine costs 99 cents, you're gone. So for me, obviously the job displacement is the bigger part of this. Now, understand, and I do get this, that AI and better technology helps make people's jobs better, makes people more productive, which means that if you had the bargaining power to collectively bargain for the increase in productivity and the obvious profit that comes along with that, that would be a good trade-off. Sadly, we don't have the same level of bargaining power. And as AI empowers employers to, well, negotiate from the position of, well, if you want a raise, I'll just replace you. Well, do you think that would have a negative on the fight for better wages, hours, conditions? I kind of do. But also not just the loss of jobs and the loss of bargaining power, but also the loss of control of the job. We already see technology in the workplace that's constantly barking at you to do more, work faster, move something quicker. Hey, why aren't you where you're supposed? Constant surveillance, constant, devaluing you as a human being, a decision-making human being, and directing you as just basically a human robot. You're just doing what you're told at every moment through a bunch of algorithms or computer programs that have no interest in you or your ability to maintain a certain pace or any of that. You're just a machine there to produce a profit. And that's all the machine sees. So are we surprised when these workplaces burn people out at alarming rates? No. And that's the goal also. The quicker we can get you along down the road, the quicker they can bring somebody else in. And this, again, comes back to this surveillance state that my right wing friends, oddly enough, because I keep hearing them talk about, oh, 15-minute cities are coming and there's what's the social scoring system. Well, AI should be something you should be going, maybe we should be restraining this surveillance state that's coming through AI powered technology. No, you've got people who want to put chips in their arms so they can punch in easier, or they can buy something at the vending machine with a swipe of their palm. It's absolutely crazy where we are. And oh, let's not forget the fact that, well, understand, with all of this pressure, not just on the jobs and the lower wages and all the stuff that comes with it, but the psychological effect that comes with the constant harassment, the constant surveillance, the constant fear of being replaced, the stress, the anxiety, the insecurity, all of this stuff, the social psychological impact that this has on people and is going to have, which means for the rest of us who may not be affected initially by AI, this is going to make more desperate, more angry, more unpredictable people who are going to do desperate, unpredictable things. I don't know if you've been noticing shootings going on. We got the easy availability of guns. So all of this stuff, has me going, we should, as a matter of citizens, as a matter of workers, as a matter of voters and policymakers, maybe we get ahead of this to ease some of those things, to regulate some of what corporate America can do, how much control they can have over your lives. Now, understand, in the trucking industry, I was, front and center when they wanted to put trucks, forward facing trucks out into the street, which I'm not against, but the ones pointing right at you, the driver, so they can watch every moment. They can see every blink of the eye, every time you sneeze, every time you breathe, if you're singing to the songs or not, if you're talking to yourself or the imaginary person in the cab with you. They want to know and collect it all. And look, someone said to me, no, they don't do that. Yeah, they actually measure how long you blink. That's how this technology, how far this has gone. Because, wow, he could be falling asleep. And understand, it's not to help you. It's not to help you feel better or be a better driver or be a better worker. No. It's about protecting the company interests. It's about where blame goes in the event something bad happens. Because on the other end, AI is pushing you to work every second you can possibly work. Those wheels had better be turning every second possible, pushing you to your maximum. And I've had people go, well, we should want to do that. We should want to be the best we could be. And yeah, that not every day and not for 40 years. And the other things that we haven't talked about at all in talking about AI is the bias and the discrimination that would come out of this. Whoever makes the machine sets the norm. Well, what if you fall outside that norm? Now you're going to have there's always going to be some kind of bias in these, some kind of discriminatory setup systems, whatever, however you want to put this, which will again cause more disruptions. And as we know, desperation and disruption and chaos causes more desperation, disruption, and chaos. So for me, this idea of using AI in the workplace has a lot of problems, a lot of ethical concerns about how we're going to use these new technologies in a way that is responsible, in a way that doesn't misuse people, and that gives people the ability to have some dignity and some psychological well-being. And for me, that all comes into having bargaining power as these things are being implemented. It's not there yet. And our legislative process has done virtually nothing to help us. I look at Congress, there's nothing there, man. There's nothing. And this should be a nonpartisan thing. If you're afraid of big tech, and I am as well, if you're afraid of giant corporations controlling everything you see and hear and read and spend and every aspect of your life, this is something you might want a nonpartisan all hands on deck solution toward, some guardrails on what corporate America and ultimately government can gather about you, what they can, how far into your mind and your psyche can they go? Now, look, we give a lot of this stuff away. You go on dating apps, you go on all these apps, and you give them permission to basically every keystroke that you make, they record. We give that permission away so we could have a free app. I'm seeing this AI girlfriend thing now. I can't wait to see the crazy data that comes out of this. We willingly give insight to our psyche and our personal lives all the time. Shouldn't we have some say on what people use that information for, and how corporate America is going to be able to use it, and how your employer is going to be able, or potential employer is going to be able to use whatever it is that you put out into the clouds? Right now, there's nothing. You have no protections of your data. You have no protections of any of the information that's out there. You're, for all intent and purposes, screwed. So when I bring up the fact that I'm happy that there's something being done, not nearly enough in my view, but something, and I get a negative response from people who just want to make this a red hat, blue hat issue, I wonder if it's not too late already. I wonder if we have it lost already. Because for working people, this should be an enormous issue. This should be a big deal because it's coming for all of us. From the person who works at the fast food joint to the open heart surgeon. Everyone it's coming for. Want to hear your thoughts? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Going to take a quick break. When we come back, Lisa Gilbert from Public Citizen is going to be here to share some thoughts on the AI situation. Back after this.
From the steel mills of Pennsylvania to the auto factories of Michigan to the modern makers movement, manufacturing makes our nation great. I'm Scott Paul, President of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. We bring business and labor together to advocate for policies that everyone can agree on. Together, we can strengthen manufacturing and create good-paying American jobs. Help us keep it made in America.
The best way to strengthen America's economy? How about investing in America's fastest growing industry? Clean energy. It means millions of jobs that pay well and can't be outsourced. And lower utility costs for families. Congress, let's get it done.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So recently, the Federal Trade Commission proposed new protections to combat AI impersonations for individuals. Now, look, they've already had a rule in place that you can't impersonate corporate America or government. That's been in place. This, as I understand it, would outlaw, people impersonating you or me or an individual for the purposes of committing fraud, like copying your voice and calling Granny and saying, hey, send us money. So this is, I think, a step in the right direction, considering we're so far behind on this. But as I understand, this could also go after the AI firms if their tools are being used fraudulently. Could be. We'll see where this goes. And here to share some thoughts on what this could mean and maybe just how far behind we are on the AI front, I've asked Lisa Gilbert to come talk with us. Lisa is the executive vice president over there at Public Citizen, citizen.org, the website. Lisa, thanks for taking time for us.
Thanks so much for having me.
So walk me through what you think this proposed new rule change is. And look, I love the work that Lena Khan's been doing over at the FTC. I think this is something that sorely behind on. Walk me through what this is.
Yeah. Well, as you said, the FTC just finalized a rule that deals with government or business impersonation, but they are now seeking to go further, looking for public comment on their idea that we should also prohibit the impersonation of individuals. And exactly as you said, this is a surging problem right now. Impersonation fraud, the idea that impersonated individuals might persuade you in a targeted manner because it's someone you know or someone you trust trust to do something that loses you money or gets you engaged in a long-term scam. That's something the FTC is here to stop. And so we're really thrilled to see that they're trying to move forward with this kind of rule.
Yeah, I had a listener, email me recently and say that, they either it happened to them or they heard it happen to them anecdotally, but that someone used their voice to call a relative and basically beg for money. And I'm going, are we at that technological point yet that someone can imprint your voice from a phone call, which this person thought it was? I don't know, but for me, this seems like a good rule to go. Maybe we don't allow that to happen.
Absolutely. And we are, unfortunately, very much at the technological point where that is very possible and, in fact, already happening. We hear, as a consumer group, lots of horror stories of, people being called by their daughter, or their friend, telling them that they've been in a car accident or they have some reason that they need funds immediately, help me. And if it's a voice you trust, which you can get via AI, generation very easily from a tiny example, if you can extrapolate out a call or a video that really feels like the person it's pretty hard to say no or to not help your friend or family member. So, this the cool additional thing that this rule would do if it comes into being is that it might also penalize the AI firm itself, the platform that created that image or that video or text. If the sort of CEO or the folks in charge knew that was how their product was being used.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point. But back to the impersonating thing. We had Dana Nessel, the Attorney General of Michigan, on the show not too long ago talking about identity theft and this in particular. And her advice was very clear. If this happens and so you get this call, take a breath and say, "Hey, I'll call you back." You make that contact. Don't get hung up in the immediacy of the moment, because that's how these scam artists and these con artists make their hay. But in looking at this, you talk about holding these firms accountable. What do you say to the person who goes, "Well, the firm, they didn't do anything wrong. It's just their tool. They can't help their tools being misused."
I mean, I don't think that's right. I think that it should be unlawful. If a platform created the image or the video or the text, they know, or they have a reason to know that, it could be used to harm consumers through impersonation. I mean, you're culpable as the executive or the board that created the product, that it's used safely and it's not it's not harming others. I mean, it's your product. At the end of the line, you are responsible for what it is impacting and how it could be harming others.
So could this be one of these moments? Because I keep saying, the sad reality is when we hold corporations accountable, it's usually a slap on the wrist. It's maybe a fine. It's maybe, hey, we'll post a notice to promise to never do it again until we do it again the next time. I keep saying, these rules have to have some teeth. Maybe we start locking some of these people up, and maybe that would be a good deterrent to not allow it to happen in the first place. Instead of, yeah, we did it. We'll post a notice and say we're sorry.
I mean, I would hope so. I can't. It's hard to know in advance of the rule being finalized exactly what the penalties will be. But one of the good things about this rule is it does give the FTC stronger tools. They are going to be able to directly file court cases aimed at forcing any of these scammers to return money that they might be making from the scam. It just really will improve the agency's ability to require defendants to do things, return money. And there is certainly the potential of moving towards criminal liability, but not clear if this rule will get us all the way there. But I completely agree with you that people should be held culpable. There should be real fines. There should be real consequences. Corporations who just build in deterrence into their business model do things again. If they already knew that it's just a tiny slap on the wrist, they're not going to be stopped from perpetrating these future frauds.
The reason I say that, Lisa, is because, look, a lot of these crimes are done by people overseas. That, we're not going to be able to go get the individual who's trying to take granny for, whatever they can, gift cards they can get out of them or whatever. A lot of this stuff is done by foreign operators. So to go after the people who are, providing them with the access to this country and the ability to get to granny, I think that's where the enforcement really should be, in my view.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And as you know, I think Public Citizen, our mission is to take on corporate power. And so, at our core, we are always thinking about how to get to those that created the tools, the firms and the industries that underlie the scams that are being perpetrated. So absolutely, that needs to be a part of any remedy. And I think the FTC is using every tool in their toolkit. I think it's something Lena Khan has been fabulous at, thinking about what are the limits of the FTC's authority and doing everything they can. But AI fraud is a huge problem, not just in consumer context, but also in election context or financial context. They could swing the market with a deep fake. Could impact our securities laws, and it could impact so many things. We really need every agency to follow her lead and tackle the piece of it that is in their purview.
Yeah, it seems to me, and I've had these conversations with friends, it seems like to me like this is a tool, not just for what our purposes of what we're talking about, but AI in general, the disruptive nature of what it's going to have on jobs, what it could have on elections, what it could have on, as you pointed out, the markets. It seems like a tool that maybe we shouldn't have. It seems like maybe it's, I don't know, something that maybe we shouldn't allow people to toy with. Maybe not give them the button for humanity. Maybe not.
I certainly think that there are huge risks to the use of AI in tons of contexts. I think, unfortunately, the genie's a little bit out of the bottle on taking it away, walking back the technology, because we had no guardrails for it, because it exploded in kind of an arms race. And now all the big tech companies have their own version and are pushing to expand it and insert it into their regular search engines, into every sort of existing way we interface with the internet. It is hard to just take it away. However, we can certainly think about the uses and think about, where, as we were just saying, existing agencies can use laws that are already on the books to rein it in. So the FTC, as you mentioned, the Federal Communications Commission recently did something banning AI use in robocalls. That's going to be hugely important for the same kinds of reasons we were just discussing. And Public Citizen has actually petitioned the Federal Election Commission to put out a rule that would require labeling of AI when it is used in fraudulent advertising in elections. So there's lots to do, but unfortunately, I don't think we can just stop it.
So what I wanted to get from you here is that something's being done, because here's my fear. Here's my problem. We are, as you pointed out, so far behind on this. And I want people to think that maybe we're doing something, because look, we're playing catch up, as you pointed out, again, not just in electoral politics, not just in interpersonal communications, in the workplace, and all these. It's everywhere, and very soon my fear is we can't catch up.
I'm fearful of that too. I hope that, the immediacy of the issue and also the bipartisan nature of the threat is causing people to think about it differently. We have seen that, for example, at the state level, we've been pushing a model deep fake bill around elections and having huge success. 32 states have introduced bills to try to ban deep fakes, and many of them led by Republicans or bipartisan. And so it's there are places where there is a lot of momentum because this is so present as a threat. But I don't want to sugarcoat, and I know you're not, that the risks are huge if we don't move fast. And it's not as if Congress or federal agencies are known for that kind of speed.
No, exactly. And look, as someone who's a labor guy, in the workplace, AI is going to be incredibly disruptive, and is in some places already. We already hear stories of AI management that it's constantly monitoring and constantly pushing and constantly basically harassing workers in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
This kind of thing, I fear, we see expanded, and it becomes something that even my right-wing friends fear and are troubled by.
That's right. I think AI is permeating literally every issue and topic right now. A big one is worker displacement, as you discussed. If an AI can do the job, will a worker still have a job? Or the practices in the workplace. How is it being used for hiring? If the algorithm that it decides to use is biased, will it impact who comes on and diversity? Is it monitoring the pace of workers and it being used for salary changes or penalties? I think the consequences of this, it's almost hard it's dystopian. It's kind of science fiction, like thinking about how many ways it can impact our lives. The thing we truly need is a comprehensive privacy bill from Congress and an AI package. I think hard to imagine in our current state of Congress that we'll get that. So it really is, what can we patchwork for the moment because we have no choice. We have to try every option.
Yeah, and look, as every day goes by and every day we don't get something done, it gets that much worse. So, this proposed rule change, there's a comment period. Is that what I'm getting here?
Yes, that's right. So they just opened it, and so I think it is 60 days, although not sure on that. It's either 60 or 30, and incredibly important that the FTC hear from everyone, hear from your listeners. That this is something that they want. I think industry will weigh in on the other side, as we know, and this kind of impersonation is scary, dangerous, and deceptive to regular people. So we just need to make sure that the FTC can get out a strong rule.
So the question I have, let me put on the other side's hat. What's the argument for not? What could possibly be the argument for no? We can't have any regulation. It would stifle innovation. What would possibly be the argument to not regulate the use of these tools to impersonate people for the purposes of fraud? What argument could you possibly make?
That's a hard one. It's not where I like to push my brain usually, but I imagine it would be some variation on what you just said. It stymies our ability to innovate. One of the things we want to do is be able to reach new people and new markets and voices and tones that they understand and relate to. And it could be used for good. It could be used to tell people how to register for Medicare. It could be used to tell people where to vote. It could be, everything about what's deceptive. One could make the argument that it could be used for good. And maybe it would be if we had the appropriate guardrails. But I don't want to trust to corporations that they will use it for good when the bottom line is at stake. And so I certainly don't buy those arguments.
No, I'm right there with you. But Lisa, I appreciate the thoughts. Last question I've got for you. What should people do? What do our viewers, what do our listeners do in the interim? Obviously make comments to the FTC and say, we need this, but how do you protect yourself? What are you paying attention to? Any thoughts?
Yeah. You mentioned some of this earlier from the AG. I think absolutely. If you fear that the outreach that you've gotten from a family member or loved one is fraudulent, just don't react. Take a second, call back the person, follow up and confirm it was really them before you send money, before you do anything, before you change your plans, whatever the ask was. Just make sure it's real. This is going to become more and more pervasive, and so we absolutely need people to understand that check is required before they act, before they send a check.
Good stuff. Lisa Gilbert, I appreciate you taking time for us. Executive Vice President over at Public Citizen. Citizen.org, the website. I want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. For our free speech, folks, thanks so much for tuning in. For our radio affiliates across the country, we're going to take a quick break. Back after this.